Hey, Joyful Journeyer, Anita Adams here, your host. And today we've got something a little different for you. Following is an interview that I did with Trish Marie, but I am the guest on her show, Soul Talk. Trish and I are on parallel journeys, and we both did an episode on our respective shows recently about being all in. And so we come together to talk a little bit more about what that really means to be all in. I hope you enjoy the show. We'll talk to you soon.
Well, hi, everybody. This is Trish Marie, and this is kind of a mashup of things. I think this is going to end up being Soul Talk, but it also is going to have a really kind of interactive podcast feel to it because I've got with me Anita Adams. She's the author of Whispers of the Soul. If you have been following me, you know I've been talking about Anita's book at certain points, especially where we seem to be having these sort of parallel intersecting moments over certain things. And I can't wait for this conversation. Anita and I just got together a couple of weeks ago and had a fantastic just time, and we'll talk about that, I'm sure. I'm just going to create some space for Anita to introduce herself a little bit in her own words. If you're not familiar with me, I'm Trish Marie. I work in the context of soul and business and reuniting those two things as we move into this unfolding age of Aquarius, if that's language that's familiar to you. I use it a little bit differently than other people, which I won't get into here, but I'm going to hand the mic over to Anita, let her do a little introduction, and then just dive into a conversation around going all in.
Going all in with Trish Marie on Soul Talk. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you, Trish. This is fun. Yes, I'm Anita Adams. I am the creator and teacher of something I call the Wisdom Way Method. And the Wisdom Way Method is all about going inwards and really understanding who you are at a soul level and stepping into that version of you full on, playing all out, going all in with who you really are. And I'm a life coach and author of the book that Trish mentioned, little self-promo, Whispers of the Soul, and a speaker. And I'm here to experience life in this moment right now with you and with Trish, and we'll see where this conversation is going to take us.
Love that. I muted myself because I was saying to Anita before we got on this call that my summer dog, where I stay in the summertime, there's a dog, and he alerts me to absolutely everything that goes on. And so sometimes I'll mute if she's talking just so that you don't hear it in the background. So let's talk a little bit first about, where this idea of going all in came from. If you have been following me, if you are connected to any of the conversations that I've been having on my podcast, on my Instagram, for me personally, this idea of going all in came really front and center with the July full moon, and some of the themes that were coming forward from that full moon in astrology, if you're familiar with astrology, was, there was a sense of kind of coming full circle, and not necessarily getting do-overs, but coming full circle and moving up sort of the spiral, right? But being able to see what we were going to really commit to this time, right? So we've come full circle and we're moving up this spiral staircase, and we're seeing things that maybe felt familiar or similar, and maybe we feel like, oh, I've been here, done that, right? But there's a reason why we're coming back into those similar or familiar places, because maybe we didn't either, get everything that our soul was looking to get from those experiences, or maybe we were being invited to go all in, committing more deeply to something that perhaps we didn't do the last time we kind of came through that circle. And so for me, I was kind of giggling to myself as I was getting ready for this conversation with Anita, that it was, for me, like, I've already done 3 other podcasts, two of it. This will be my 3rd one. And so that was the thing that came forward for me, was that, I'd been on the fence about maybe doing another podcast. Okay, well, what would it look like? How would it be different? What kind of conversations would I bring forward? And how would I do it differently this time? than I have in the previous, 2 iterations of this. And as I was sitting on the beach one day through the summer, I got this like so strong, and it wasn't like an audible voice for me, but it was just this, all of a sudden this idea came front and center for me: New Age tour guide. New Age tour guide. And I'm very familiar with this phrase because this phrase is my core driver in numerology. So I'm a core 11 in numerology, which is, I've kind of started to language it, the core 11s, as being a New Age tour guide. There's something about the mashup of experiences and perspectives and whatever that I have that allow me to speak about things in a very forward thinking perspective, and from a very I don't want to say like teaching, because it's not that, but showing people the highlights of what I've found along the way, right? And so here I am on the beach, and I'm thinking about this New Age tour guide. And then I sat down and I wrote my email to my community, and Anita got that email. And then she emails me back and says, "Oh my God, I love this idea of going all in." So I'm going to pause. That's my part of how we kind of got into this idea of going all in, and what are we going all in on? But I want to hear it from Anita's perspective.
Yeah.
Like, what other things were going on for you at the time that when this email showed up, it was something that caused you to pause?
Yeah, and more than pause, I went, oh my God, the universe, God is talking to me again. Time to pay attention. And as I say that, I get the goosebumps, or what I call the truth bumps, just all over my body. So it's just so interesting, and the parallel and the journey with what you're doing with the podcast, and the sort of like, oh, should I step back? Oh, I got to, recreate. What am I going to do? And I had decided back in early mid-July, I guess I had decided I was going to stop my podcast, The Joyful Journey, which I'd been doing for over 2 years, a weekly show. And as much as I loved it, I guess I was feeling burnt out, and I was ready to just sort of walk away. There's a lot of other stuff that was going on, and I thought I'd step back from it. And then I just started getting these messages from different places that I wasn't playing full out with my vision. And I had to ask myself, well, what's my vision? And it's like, okay, my vision, my goal is to teach people how to tap into inner wisdom. And that's the whole reason I started the Joyful Journey podcast, was to do that. And if that is my goal, why am I walking away or stepping back from doing the Joyful Journey podcast? And then your email landed on my desk, and it said, are you all in? And I'm like, wow, okay, maybe I'm not all in. And then the very next day, I was listening to a book by Jay Shetty, Think Like a Monk. And he used those very words, and he asked, are you all in? And I pushed stop. I'm like, what? And then 2 days after that, I got an email from my former business coach, who has been a huge influence in my life and continues to be somebody that I just deeply respect. She's become like a spiritual mentor to me. And all she asked was this the right decision, Anita? And I'm like, oh, the decision to step away from the podcast. And I felt so strongly that I was being called to re-examine this decision that I made, and why was I making this decision? And I had to take a really big step backwards and go inward and really ask myself, why was I stepping back from doing the podcast? Because it is a tool that I can use to help me get my message out into the world. It is a means to an end that I want to create. So why am I not playing all in? And some really interesting things emerged for me. And one of the things emerged was a fear of success. And I've had this fear before. No, scratch that. I've had success before in a previous business, and that success just about destroyed my marriage. That's not entirely true either. It's how I dealt with the success is a better way of saying that. I allowed my business and the success I was having with that business to come in between me and my husband. I made that a bigger priority, the business and my children, and my husband, Tom, was kind of squeezed out in a way. And so because of that, I was putting on the brakes with what I was doing with my current business. I was not playing all in because of this fear that if I play all in, if I go all in, will it destroy my marriage? And I realize, of course, that's not true. I'm a different person today. I am a wiser person. I know the things to avoid, the things to not do, and the things to do that will nurture that my primary relationships. And I'm like, okay, all right, I'm going all in. I'm back in. I'm going to get back on the saddle and run hard with this, because it is a great tool to use to get the word out about the work I'm doing and the work that you're doing. Like, this is important stuff. But I had to take that time. I had to listen to the nudges from the universe to question what was going on. Why am I not going all in? And then when you understand the why behind it and understand the fear, it's usually fear, I believe, that stops people from going all in. And when you understand that fear, then you can take action to move around the fear or move through the fear. I don't think there's no such thing as fearlessness when it comes to pursuing our dreams and our goals and those big visions. So it's not about becoming fearless. It's about recognizing the fear and then navigating through it. So here I am.
It's, again, like I said, Anita and I have so many parallels, as I think if we're really honest with ourselves, when we're sitting in a conversation, we're having a conversation with someone, we start to realize that there's more that we have in common than what separates us, right? What divides us, or what we think divides us. And, I am so interested in this conversation around the fear of success, because we hear, I think, a lot about the fear of failure, but I don't think that we hear nearly enough about how people are navigating through that fear of succeeding and of seeing that vision come to life in its fullness, right? And, so I can relate to the fear of success. I can relate to that. I think that's one of the reasons why I did 2 podcasts that had nothing to do with the New Age and the New Age tour guide, even though at the time that I was doing them, if you go back and listen to some of those episodes, you're like, you were talking about it right there. You were just using different, like, it was coming from a different angle. But I think for me, that fear of success is like, what if all of those divine downloads that you've been getting, that caused you to write your book, that have led you forward on those into those places that felt so awkward and unfamiliar, and what if those niggles and nudges that we're getting right now, what if they're right? What if they're correct? And what if they are moving us in the direction that we're meant to be going? And I think that, my opinion, there's a difference. I don't even know if it's fear about that. It feels to me like it's a different kind of uncertainty, like, because we just haven't been taught how to trust that side of ourselves, right? So I will say that I've probably known that in this instance, we're all talking about the thing that we're going to go all in on in this conversation. There's all kinds of other things, okay, guys? But in this instant, we're talking about this thing called a podcast and what we're doing with that. I don't think that we've been taught in our culture, or maybe even in our family environments, certainly not in a business context, have we ever been taught to truly trust our intuition.
No, not in this society. We certainly haven't. We've been taught, if anything, we've been taught to shut that out. That's woo woo. That you can't trust that. That's it's silly. It's stupid talk. So we need to go back to remembering it. And I like to use that word remembering, because it really is a remembering. We all have this this ability, this innate ability to tap into inner wisdom, intuition, inner knowing, inner compass, whatever your word is, it's there. And it becomes stronger, and we become more attuned to it the more we listen to it and practice tuning in. And yes, those niggles, those nudges, they are leading us to the best version of who we are and the best possibilities for our life. And the reason we don't listen to them, there's multiple reasons we don't listen to them. One, we don't believe in them, we don't trust them. But they also point us in a direction that will force us to step out of our comfort zone. And what do we do when we're uncomfortable? We pull back, right? We step back from that. And but that's what we got to learn to do. We got to learn to step in and play full out.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking, like, as you're saying this, like, this is why I'm not sure if the word is even fear. I'm not even sure if that's the sort of the emotional quality that surrounds this as much as it's sort of in this, and maybe somebody could find the right word for me. But if you don't know how to trust something, then you're going, like you say, you're going to pull back. If you don't know what you don't have a proven track record that is actually leading you in the right direction, you're not going to intentionally listen for it, right? And yes, of course, we're bombarded around us by focus on the numbers and show me the money and prove it with data, and I want to see the statistics for that. And it's like all of this stuff continually pulls us away from that part of us that actually does know. And so I feel like that has been, for me anyways, that's what's been playing more around the edges of this than anything else. And for me, it's also what kind of, I think, is pulling us away from really tapping into what our core value is to the community, to the marketplace, to the evolution that we're all going through right now. It's causing us to kind of play shy with it, or hold back what our core value actually is.
Yeah, absolutely. But it really comes down to knowing, understanding what are your core values. Know yourself, understand yourself. You can't trust that inner voice of wisdom without really knowing who you are. You can't trust that inner voice of wisdom without having a deep sense of love for self. So that's where it really has to start. We are so much an outward looking society. We look outward for guidance for everything. We look to the magazines, to the TV, to parents, to partners, to friends to tell us, who we should be, instead of really going inward and identifying for ourselves who we are, and then standing in that truth. So it actually starts there. And again, I got those truth bumps. I know I'm speaking something that is very truthful. We need to start there. When we understand that, and we make the time to really understand who we are, what we want, and why it matters, then we can be more easily guided by that inner source of wisdom, by those niggles, or again, whatever your word is for that inner guidance that comes to all of us.
Yeah, I can't agree with that enough. And I also, sit on the flip side of this to, knowing how long it took me to really start to allow that whole aspect of life, the mystery of intuition, and the mysterious way that spirit moves and speaks with us, spirit, God, the divine, whatever language you choose to use for yourself. That there's and all of the, sort of mystery traditions, which I am a huge fan of, in bringing forward and making them a part of sort of the conversation that we're having. But it took me so long to really get to a place where this is a matter of fact for me now.
When you say it took you so long, it took you so long to believe in the process, or to develop your inner listening skills? What took you so long?
Both things. It took time. I think, and this is what I was saying, I can't remember who I was saying this to, but I said, I think one of the reasons why I was kind of dancing with this whole New Age tour guide stuff and really leaning into, like, this is just the whole thing for me. And I marvel at people who do this and it looks so natural to them, is it took me so long to feel that inner sense of grounding around it. Right? That inner sense of, and I use that phrase very specifically, Anita, it's a matter of fact for me now, because I've tested it, I've worked with it, I've played with it. I know what practices and tools I found that work and don't work for me, but I've seen enough now to cause me to keep sort of trusting that more than what I trust in sort of the world of fact and outside appearances, right? You've written something recently on your Instagram about fear, and you were talking about, and you came up with two, and then I think there was a third one, false evidence appearing real. False evidence appearing real. But no matter how you look at it, I just think it takes time. And I don't know that we, in our culture, in our society, again, what we have been taught and trained and learned is very different than where we are right now, in having to sort of unlearn and relearn how to allow that mystery to exist and to be totally okay with it.
Absolutely. Yeah. It is interesting. The allowing the mystery without evidence, right? The allowing the experience to happen it's so important that we lean into the allowing and the noticing. Lean into the noticing. This is something that I'm playing with right now. I want to write an article about the noticing. And what do I mean by that? What I mean is paying attention to what's going on around you, noticing the little signs. I hate using the word signs. It's almost got a, like a woo-woo. You know what I mean? But there's so...
Yeah, but I'm okay with the woo-woo, so bring it on.
I know, and I am too. But yeah, anyways. But really paying attention, it was me paying attention and seeing that there was an email that landed on my inbox that said, asked me if I was all in. There was a podcast that I was listening to, an audiobook that I was listening to that asked me that if I'm all in. I had a coach that reached out to me and asked me in different words if I'm all in. And it's like, okay, I'm noticing these connections, these little mysteries that are popping up in my life. And what is mine to do now by noticing? So being in the noticing, paying attention to what is happening around you gives you clues. And I love that you use the word mystery, because mystery is fun, isn't it?
I think so.
Fun. And
I think so.
It's being curious. Like going through life with curiosity is such a beautiful way of being in the world. Having the curiosity to ask questions and to look into why something is happening and what is going on. And, the thing that I've been noticing recently is this notion of faith. What is faith? And faith is it's more than just believing.
Mm-hmm.
It's really leaning into God's grace, that you are on a path that is going to lead you somewhere beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
So let go of the worry, let go of the concern, and just follow the spiritual breadcrumbs that are laid out in front of you.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you will arrive, maybe not where you wanted to arrive initially. This is important, but you are going to arrive somewhere that is perfect for you and beautiful for you.
It's that well, and that in and of itself requires a different level, different kind of trust.
It
I was just
does.
reading the other day that Albert Einstein apparently had said that one of the first things that a person has to really reconcile for themselves is, do we live in a universe that is um, oriented towards our benefit, towards our edification, towards blessing us, or are we living in a universe that is conspiring for our doom?
Conspiring for our what?
Doom, DOOM, right?
Doom.
Well,
Okay.
because it's either in a universe that is wanting
Yeah.
for everyone to experience blessing and expansion and growth and possibility,
Right.
or it's a universe that is actively conspiring to
Yeah.
create, like, to cause destruction, right? And
Right.
I'm not suggesting that, if you know me, you know I can speak into this in a lot of different ways, but um, there are cycles of growth and expansion, and then dissolution and destruction, and then new things come up out of that. But what's the nature of the universe for us? And I think that there's a probably a lot of people who really haven't settled that for themselves, and there's a maybe a and I know for myself personally, it's a conversation I'm always having with myself.
Mm.
When you look at the circumstances that are kind of unfolding in our world right now, it would cause you to believe that we are living in a universe that is like hell bent on destruction and chaos. Well,
Mm-hmm.
but are we? Are we? Is that the nature of the universe? I don't know that. I don't know that to be true. All of a sudden, I feel like Tucker Carlson because he does that. He does that all the time. Anyways, but
If
I think
can I
that's a
jump
really
in here
important
for a
question.
second?
Yeah, I
Um,
do think that's an important question for people.
yeah, and it's so interesting because if you look at the micro, the world right now in this moment, it feels like chaos, right? There's
Hmm.
just so much destruction that is happening, and there's
Yeah.
a lot of hate in the world, and there's a lot of suffering. If you pull back and look at the macro, you can see how much we have actually evolved, how
Hmm.
much good there is, and the trajectory of the path
Hmm.
that we're on is not one that's spiraling down to doom.
Hmm.
There's actually a big awakening that's also happening right now on such a grand scale. It gives me so much hope for the
Yeah.
future,
Yeah.
so much hope. But
And
it's
that's
so
exciting
hard
for
to,
you, for other people to hear from you that hope, because I was actually just talking with someone, Anita, and I'm going to come back to this word called respair. This word respair, finding fresh hope and recovering from despair. It's an
mm,
old word, but I think that's another thing that, coming back to why are we going back into our podcast? Is it an opportunity to breathe a word of hope out into the
absolutely.
world?
Yeah,
Is it an opportunity to maybe point people to things that we've found that have helped us recover from those periods of despair, right?
absolutely. Yeah.
Um, so I'd like to just kind of chat a little bit about you stepping into your 30-day challenge that was presented by your coach, because I'm
Mhm.
thinking of all maybe some people who um, maybe they don't have, maybe you don't have a practice, maybe you don't have a soul practice or a spiritual practice, or some sort of a quieting, like something that allows you to get quiet and listen for those nudges, niggles, those whispers, whatever. um what was that first week like when she gave you this challenge and you went out for the first, maybe not forget the first week, first 3 days of
Yeah.
doing this?
Yeah, let me just give a little context to this. So this was early in the pandemic, and my business at the time, I was the founder of a national arts organization that I had been running for almost 20 years, and it got hit really hard by the pandemic. And overnight, my funding got pulled. All of my sponsors pulled out, and I was going deeper and deeper into a line of credit. I had a staff across the country I was responsible for, and the anxiety about this whole thing was really mounting. And it wasn't just the loss of potential loss of a paycheck. Well, it was actually I did lose the paycheck initially, but it was more than that. It was more about a loss of my identity. Who am I if I don't have this business? And it just sent me into this spiral of anxiety. And I brought this to my business coach. I asked her, as I was at the time, I was very outward looking. I was asking everybody else what I should do. I wasn't going inward. I needed somebody else to fix it and tell me how to fix it. And so I went to my business coach and asked her what to do. And she asked me one simple question, which was, what do you typically do when you're stressed? And I'm like, well, I usually go for a walk in the woods. And she's like, perfect. Here's what you're going to do, Anita. Every day for the next 30 days, you're going to go for a walk in the woods. And initially I was like, what? No, I can't do that. I don't have time for that. And I really pushed back. And in my head, I was thinking, what kind of business coach sends her clients into the woods? I need business advice, not nature therapy. But she managed to get a commitment out of me. And so every day, and the only way I could find time to do this was to get up at the crack of dawn. And I would be out the door, nobody else was out. It was me, the birds, and the occasional coyote. And I was kind of angry, I was so frustrated with the whole situation. And, so to answer your question, Trish, I was, like demanding of the universe. What am I supposed to do? And I had this march, this mad march down to the forest. And I was like, oh, it was just like this negative energy and angry feeling that was all over me. But I'm a stickler for commitments. I believe when we make commitments, we honor ourselves by sticking to them. We dishonor ourselves by not sticking to them, and we create that sense of disrespect, and we lose confidence in ourselves when we don't stick to our commitments. So I stuck to my commitment to go every day for a walk in the forest, and over time, that anxiety and that anger and that frustration started to melt away, and I was even feeling grateful to my business coach for sending me out into the woods, and grateful for this incredible environment that was, surrounding me in this state of gratitude and expansion in my heart, and this feeling of just happiness. I wasn't exactly happy, but I was definitely happier than I was, when I first started this.
Yeah.
And I asked that question again, what should I do? And that's when I started to tune into the whispers of my soul, which actually led me to writing this book, because I got a response. and the response was, what do you want to do? And I pushed back on that too. I pushed back on that, and I'm like, what do you mean? What do I want to do? What am I supposed to do? I was basically arguing with myself, but it was like I was having a conversation with an older, wiser version of me. And the older, wiser version said, no, Anita, what do you want to do? And I'm like, I don't know. Yes, you do. And that has changed my life. That has totally changed my life, because I started to really invest time into figuring out how to tap into that knowledge. And I haven't stopped walking in the forest.
But no, she hasn't. I can attest to this. When I was out with Anita a couple of weeks ago, she graciously invited me up to this beautiful place that her and her husband have found, and we went we went for this gorgeous walk through the woods, and like I can just see it being such a place of replenishment
Great word.
and
Yes.
and being able to just receive as you're walking through that space. And there's so much. I'm just starting to scratch the surface on some of these things around nature, and but I heard something the other day that, because I tend to want to be around water a lot right
Mhm.
now, and it has been like that for probably the last maybe 6 or 8 months, but there's periods of times where I always want to be around water. And I read something and I heard something, and this is another one of those repeating messages for me, that water holds consciousness.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, me too. And it really, when you think
Mhm.
about this whole conversation of us raising the consciousness on the earth, it's actually, there's some people who are really believing that that's coming through the water. So, not to digress, but I thank you for that explanation of what it felt like, because I think I can relate to that too, and I'm sure that other people will be able to relate to. This doesn't feel
Mhm.
comfortable at all. This doesn't feel fun. This doesn't. I mean, it's sort of. I'm sort of feeling a little bit less stressed at times, but it takes time, right? So I was saying how it took time to find the practices, to develop our personal practice, and it took time to realize, for me anyways, that one of the things that I wanted to do was the New Age Tour Guide podcast. One of the
Nice.
things that you probably wanted to do was coming back and picking up your Joyful Journey podcast again. And I think that's probably, my opinion, guys, that's all this is. I think that's one of the biggest lies that we have been sold in our world, is that we're not supposed to be doing what we want to do, what
Yes.
actually gives us
Mm.
joy, what actually causes us to feel satisfaction and fulfillment.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, Trish. I've had more than one client push back with me on that as well. So the wisdom way method that I mentioned earlier that I teach, a big part of that is asking yourself three, what I call the three most important questions, three MIQs. And that is, who am I? What do I want? And why does it matter? And the what do I want gets pushback from people. And the pushback is that's selfishness. I want to be operating from my highest self for the highest good of others. What I want is coming from the ego. This is what other people say to me. What I want is coming from the ego, and therefore it's selfish and not for the highest good. And my argument is no, you've got that so wrong. Your highest good is achieved when you tune into your joy, when you figure out what lights you up and follow that path. Then you're going to step into your highest good. You're going to act from your highest good, and you are going to serve the world in that form, in your highest good, and the highest good for all. And it's not selfishness.
Yeah.
These are the clues that God has given us to help us find who we were supposed to be or who we are born to be, so we can
Yeah.
deliver the highest good and be in the greatest good of all.
I
It's not.
totally agree with this. And like I said, it took me so long.
You're not
Not
alone.
only so long to sort of like even receive that as a truth, as like a truth, like capital T truth, but so long to test that. Okay, I want to do this. What happens when I do that? What bad thing happens when I do that? Right? Or what good things happen?
Mm.
And that was what I had to start to kind of shift my relationship with around, right? And it was a series of experiments and tests and trying different things, and
Yeah.
seeing that, wow, actually no bad thing is happening me doing the things that I want to be doing. And actually what I keep hearing, and I heard it so loudly at certain times, that when I made the decision to do the thing that I wanted to do, it was like almost instantaneous that I would get an email, or somebody would DM me on Instagram, or I'd get an invitation to do something as it somehow connected to this thing that I would just, sort of put out in the world. And it was it's those moments where you really actually get those confirmations that, see, we told
Yeah.
you. See.
Listen.
And so I think it's an interesting way to kind of bring the conversation back into where we started with this idea of going all in, because I had already done 2 podcasts. I couldn't imagine what else I could, how that was going to look. This summer I kind of really tuned into the fact that I was actually still pretty burned out by being in this entrepreneurial journey and taking this, red pill and rabbit hole journey, and moving through the spiritual awakening.
Mm.
It's amazing, and in my opinion, it can be exhausting.
Yeah.
It can be exhausting if you're like me and you just like went all in on it. Because you do need to have those times of replenishment. You need to have those times of restoration. At any rate, so I want to bring us back to just talking about, when we are talking about, what do I want? Why does it matter? Who are we? And, what is the unique way that I am able to show up? I'm able to show up as a New Age tour guide, and Anita's going to show up as, the various elements of her soul style. And that, for me, I've started to reconcile, allows me to show up with greater ease, with greater flow, not so much feeling like I'm pushing a rock uphill. Are you feeling at this moment in time, are you feeling like it's easier to go all in now?
Yeah. Yes, I do feel it's easier to go all in, and that's because I invested the time to understand what was holding me back. And I think that's so important to understand that piece. And I have a daily spiritual practice that I've committed to. There's that word again, commitment. And it has made all the difference that I have committed to a practice. That's something that helps me connect to God, to my higher self. And when I am consistent with that practice, doubt and like the self-doubt and the uncertainty doesn't disappear entirely. I'd be lying if I said that, but it's a lot less than it ever was before. And I definitely have moments of pure faith, pure faith, only moments. I am moving towards expanding those moments. And with that, there's joy and contentment that comes with that, and knowing that all will be well, all will be well, all will be well, and really leaning into that belief. Yeah. And I feel lighthearted because of it, and things flow with so much more ease, when you just lean into that belief and that trust.
Love it. All right. Well, with these closing minutes, is there anything else that you would like to leave with our listener, viewer, watcher, observer?
Yeah. Invest time with yourself. Really, that's what it all comes down to. And the goal is to really get to know who you are, what you want, and why it matters. And that comes from loving yourself. So,
I love that. Well, so in this conversation, I have talked about something referred to as your core driver in numerology. And I included that in my ebook for this year. So I'm going to include a link where you can download my ebook if you're curious about it, just to see, like, for me, it really kind of shapes an overarching plot line. Gives us a bit of a sense of like, what's this supposed to all be about? Like, what am I going all in on? And for me, it really did kind of help me paint a broader picture of how my gifts and talents were going to be distributed. It wasn't just about business, which is a huge thing for me. Huge, huge, huge thing for me to see that kaleidoscope of a life 360 degrees, and it's all of it. It's not just one sort of little realm of it, and it's not that it's not, but it's not all of it. Anyway, so I'll put a download link to that below for that if you want to get a hold of that. I'm going to put Anita's contact information and a link to some of the things that she's got for people down below as well. And I'll do Soul Talk at the end of every month on a Tuesday. And I just want to thank Anita for joining me on this one.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me here, Trish. I love our conversations, and it's fun
Me
to
too.
just riff.
This felt very soul-y for me.
Totally. Love it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.